Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Creative Contact. I'm your host, Orion. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me in your ear holes, in your eyeballs, in your brain stem. We're here, baby. This is going to be a quick and dirty episode. I know I say that every time, but I actually mean it this time once again. Why? Because it's my second to last week in Argentina, so I'm going to save all the Buenos Aires recaps for next week. This is not going to be a Buenos Aires episode. This is a special episode. This might be a pivotal moment in your man's life. I'm done. I'm finished. I did it. My first novel, rough draft, in the books, officially completed. I know you probably wanted something else, but it's a key episode. It's a key pod. We're going to be talking about creativity. It's creative contact. This is what we do, baby. We're out here. We're being creative. We're thinking about life, love, happiness, everything in between. And a lot of that for me comes down to purpose. I was talking to a friend about this recently. You know who you are. And I find I'm the most, I don't want to say unhappy, but when I find myself being sad or maybe feeling a little bit depressed, it's often from a lack of clarity. And I stole this from Alex Hormozy, but I stole this idea from him that when I'm not feeling great, it's often because the path isn't super clear. And I'm not saying that my path, I have everything figured out, far from a long shot, but I feel like I have at least a couple next steps, and those next steps at least have potential. They may work, they might not, but at least they're there. And that, to me, if nothing else, always helps me feel a little bit better, helps me kind of wake up excited like I'm able to make sense of kind of what's going on around me. It's when I'm in those moments that I feel like I'm floundering or in this kind of purgatory that tends to be often when I struggle the most. So, anyway, I want to talk to you about what it feels to finish the novel. What's next for your boy? What's going on? So, this is a novel. The last book I released was in, I believe, right before the new year. So, it's been 5 months since I've dropped anything, and it's going to be a while before I drop this one. This is just a rough draft. This is the bare bones. The words are on the pages. That doesn't mean that it's close to being finished or anything like that, but it feels good to at least put that button on it, say, here's the project. Now it's just the rewriting part, which I don't want to say is easy, but it's not generative, which is nice. So when I first got to Buenos Aires, there was I put together kind of this little piece I've been talking about before. It's called Lessons in Love. I'm actually still working on that. It's kind of like 6 little short stories. A kind of experimental, I don't want to say in terms of the format, although a little bit. It was my first real foray into trying anything that was more personal, more close to home, close to the bone, as it were, like just really a little bit more raw and different kind of perspectives, second person, playing with, just different points of view, things of that nature. So that's kind of been percolating on the side, but I knocked that out in like a month. This last project has been very inspired by 3 authors in particular. And I'm really excited for you guys to check this out. This one's very experimental, both in terms of the prose, both in terms of the style. It's just it feels, I almost wanted to be this mix between like poetry and prose, but also the way that it's formatted, I want it to feel very casual, very personal. Like I'm speaking directly to you, less trying to create as little distance as possible from myself and the reader, as well as really trying to embody more of like my own voice rather than it feeling like some sort of like highfalutin literary thing. So I'm really stoked to finally get cracking on this. My next goal is to find an editor to help me whittle this bad boy into something manageable and see if it has legs. Like every time I have a writing coach I've been working with, and he's always like, Kia, plot. So, the plot is very kind of like loose and overarching. It's very much based, it's autofiction, as they say. It's very much based in my experience. It's almost feels kind of memoir-esque. So a lot of these things are based around true events, and then I've just kind of taken them, made them more exciting, leaned into them more, kind of the quirkiness, definitely have fictionalized different elements, different people, different pieces, but a lot of the different characters and stuff are real, based on real experiences. And yeah, it's been a lot. It's probably the hardest I've ever worked on anything, biggest project I've ever undertaken. But I'm glad just to have that piece kind of like at least down. Now this is the part when I can go back and see if there's actually anything there that could be something cool. I want to release anything I'm making at this point. I'm releasing it. I think I just have the hubris almost from it being a naive point of view, which is cool. Like, since I didn't have an MFA, I don't actually know what it takes to be great in this space, since I don't really pay attention to like literary works. I love to read, but it's not like I'm like, like balls deep in Hemingway or anything like that. That I think I just have the hubris to be like, oh, it's cool. This was fun. I enjoyed it. That has energy to it. Let me put it out there. And the more that I think about quality like this, I've talked about this before in other pods, the more I'm like, I just want to start putting stuff out there, because quality really is so subjective. And there's something fascinating to me about that. That's going to take me to another point I want to talk about a little bit later, is that it can be the best thing ever, but if it's not for you, then it technically doesn't matter how good it is, because it's not for you, so you're not going to consume it. So it's technically like a 0 on like the quality scale, even if it's the most, perfectly written thing ever. And so for me, I find a lot of like creative license in that I'll be like, dude, this is trash. You know what you're doing. All those voices will, click in my head. And I'll be like, but if I can find the right audience, if I can lean into the weirdness, into the kookiness, into the keyiness of this, there will be people this resonates for. My younger self, and that if I can not lose track of that gives it merit, because it gives it voice. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the best thing ever, which is really helpful. And I think for me, helps me kind of get over those creative bumps. So this last week, finished that last chapter. I didn't know how it was going to end. It was one of those things that like the ending kind of sneaks up on you. And then I was like, oh, this is actually kind of perfect. I had this one really long chapter that I ended up kind of like breaking down into 3 separate sections. And it culminated kind of nicely in a way that doesn't feel too overly dramatic, because your boy can be a little bit dramatic from time to time. So that's kind of that project that's in the can, and I'm going to give it some space, some room to breathe, try to find an editor, maybe throw some samples to folks, I'm going to talk to my writing coach about it next week and kind of get a feel for where the biggest holes are in that project, and kind of start pushing that towards the finish line. So that's one. As a Lessons in Love piece being edited by a friend, which is cool. And that'll be coming down. That one, I have no rush on that one. It's kind of, that'll come out when it comes out, but I'm excited for both of those kind of pieces. The third creative project is I really want to get this audiobook I want to record the audiobook for the last short collection of short stories, because they are humor. And so I feel like so much of that comes from, I want to live on the page and be funny on the page, but I think a lot of that also, if I could deliver those the way that I wrote them, I think it would add a little extra oomph. And I decided, I'm going to see how this plays out, but my current kind of strategy, if you will, with these things is, when I think about reading or just consuming books in general, like rarely am I just on Amazon being like, what's hot in the number 1? Anytime I read something, it's almost always off of a recommendation. And so I'm like, okay, so if I'm not trying to then hack the Amazon bestseller lists, and those lists don't really mean shit to me. Like, I've lived a lot of my life on ego. I don't really care about that shit anymore. I just want it to like be good. I want people to read it. I want to be people that I can connect with. So I'm not worried about the New York Times or all that shit. Ain't even on my radar. So I was like, okay, so if people, like to get things from recommendation, then it doesn't necessarily mean that I need to be on Amazon, because I'm not necessarily expecting my shit to like just be on some algorithm that people find and then download. It's not genre fiction. And so I was like, okay, if people are learning from word of mouth anyway, then how about I sell this shit directly to the people, to you, to y'all. And I was like, that way, because I want emails. It's like, if Amazon, anybody can click around, I also can't control the pricing. I'm like, I want emails. I'm like, I want to be able to keep in touch and reach out and say, thank you. If I bought it, it comes in, it's like directly, it's almost like, it's as close as it can be to like me handing you the book and you paying me in cash and being like, thank you very much. And me being like, let me send you something cool for this. Let me follow up. Let's keep in touch. And building that sort of like 1,000 true fans that Kevin Kelly talks about, that I really do believe in. This sort of like, I don't have to be the best-selling author ever if I can have a few folks who really fuck with the work. And my brother actually gave me the idea to make it pay what you want. So the other books I had priced at $1, but I think what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to have the audiobook, I'm going to start recording the audiobooks, and I'll be able to get those out quicker, because they don't have to be like, Amazon has super specific ridiculousness when it comes to audiobooks, which is why it isn't out yet, because was like, man, it has to go through all, even this is someone who's like knows audio engineering, and that shit is a pain in the ass. It's like all these specifics with decibels and length and I'm like, dude, you're overcomplicating it. I'm like, I just want to make the fucking audio, make it sound good. And then I was like, you know what I could do? If I do this a little bit more DIY, which is very Kia with my indie spirit, I'm like, I could just make this a Spotify playlist. I could just like upload these files directly to Spotify and then sell it, pay what you want. So you both the book and the audio together. I can give you the files, but I'll be like, here's the Spotify playlist, here's the Apple like iTunes playlist. Like, you know, I can, again, I like that idea of, again, having creative control over it rather than all these weird specifications. And of course, it will probably eat into the bottom line, but that's really where I'm trying to focus on having some sort of economic engine outside of just the books, at least for now. And that's why like the sales stuff down the line, as I've kind of been working. I've been working some sales copywriting gigs on some phones, but I'm hopefully going to move into like a more lucrative role in a month or so. So like I get my economic engine going, and then I can just like do the creative shit that I want to do it, and like build that out to be something that I'm proud of, that's a little bit more, going to be more work, but something that I feel good about. And I like that pay what you want model, because that's like, if you want it for $1, then you got it. You don't have to, you know, no sweat if you can't afford it, or if you knew you just want to test it, you really know who I am, cool, it's $1, take it. Or if you're like, yo, okay, this is cool, let me pay you $10, I'm here for that too. So I like that kind of pay what you want model, as well as keeping in closer contact with folks. So I'm really excited about that, kind of getting, I don't have that infrastructure, I haven't built that out yet. It's not going to be a ton of work, but kind of starting to put those gears in motion. And then the last piece that I've been super excited about, which I'm waiting until the end to tell you about, which is why, because this is going to be a long little thing, is that this last week I finished the rough draft. I was like, damn, so I wonder what my next creative project is going to be. It's like, it might take a while for me to think of something. And then it was like 2 days later, it was like, well, crazy. I just feel like on some Stephen Pressfield shit, he calls it the muse. It's like, I've been so creatively focused, like my kind of creative, I don't want to say I've been creatively blocked, because I've been very creatively like honed in on this project. But as soon as like that was like, my brain was like, oh, this is done. It's like all these ideas were like swarmed me. And so this next project I've been thinking about toying with, going for, is one that I feel I've been scared about doing for a while, but it's also been percolating in my mind for a while. And about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, I had an idea for like a short, I wasn't sure if it was like a scene or a short story or what, but I had like a really vivid scene in my head. It was like kind of this cool like love story that I was like, I wrote it as just like a scene, like a short story scene. Didn't go anywhere or anything. I was like, okay, just table that, but I felt like it had legs. And then I don't know why it took me this long to think about it, but I was in my kitchen, I was eating lunch, and it kind of dawned on me that I was like, you know what I'd love to do? I was like, okay, so I have kind of these writing chops that I've been building. I love music. I was like, what if I wrote a musical? I was like, and as soon as I had the thought, and not like a stage play musical, but like a movie musical, almost like a La La Land or something, or the show Empire. I was like, or Rocket Man. I loved it. I was like, dude, I was like, I bet I could write a killer story with the writing, and then also make the soundtrack to go with it. And I haven't made music in maybe a year and a half, 2 years, because I haven't felt called to it, because I don't want to like just pursue that life as like as an artist anymore, as like a rapper, singer. But I was like, I could create a character and like tell this story, and then almost like create my own little musical, like the soundtrack to go in that story. And I was like, that I get super hyped thinking about. And so the last week or so, less than a week, it's been less than a week since I had the idea, I've been really intimidated for a long time about learning screenwriting, because it's a completely different animal than novel writing, and it's not under necessarily your control. It's almost like two completely different worlds. Like to do movies and shit, it takes like so much funding. So it's such a collaborative process. It's such a lift. It's everything that like is the antithesis of what I'm into. But I still think it would be cool, because I do love movies and I love music. And so I like this idea of kind of like this visuals with the music piece. I'm like, this is cool. Whereas novels are really great in any sort of writing, because it can be very indie, it just takes you're kind of the puppeteer of the whole thing. You have a team, of course, if you want, but it's not like you can do direct publishing. Like, I don't need anybody else to really do that. To create an audiobook, to create a regular book, a novel, I can do that on my own. To create some sort of like movie piece with the music and all that, like that's a big ass lift, which I think intimidates me, but is also exciting because it's a whole new world to kind of explore. And so I was like, you know what, like anything else, I was like, you just got to do it. You know, I'm like, there's nothing to it but to do it. And so I started learning screenwriting. I got I just, Googled around the top 3 books on screenwriting, got them. I've been working through them, kind of learning about story structure, because I think about the screenwriting will probably help the novel writing and vice versa. I think really when I think about writing the novel, and you'll see this when you read it, I really like dialogue is really what I love. I love people. I love stories, human interaction. I don't think I have many superpowers in this life, but I think one of them is being very emotional and like being very in tune with emotions, people's emotions, being empathetic. And that sort of like emotional piece to me, I think it's like every superhero, it's kind of it's my superpower. I also think it's kind of my Achilles heel, which is why sometimes I can be really, I don't want to say scared, but like, I don't jump into relationships easily because I'm a sensitive dude, so it's easy to get hurt and these different things. But it's been really cool kind of learning this new form. And so I've just been balls deep in it and started this screenplay. I kind of I've been going through these books, doing the exercises for screenwriting. It's a totally different form, like structurally, format-wise, but there's software to help with that. And then it's also been interesting kind of thinking about 3-act structure, thinking about the different beats, the different parts of a story, that the more I kind of am reading, learning, analyzing it, working on my own, this new story that I had, it's cool. I'm able to kind of like see, it's like you're kind of able to see the matrix, like how this plays out in like every movie, the different themes and archetypes and things like that. So the story, the one that kind of clicked for me was the reason I brought up the thing about before having that scene was I was like, oh, this is the scene that I was picturing like a year ago in this kind of movie that I wanted. So I'm creating sort of the way to think about it is almost like 8 Mile meets like La La Land, where it's going to be a guide that I've created. It's almost like what would have happened if my story had been different, if I had made it. And so it's, a guy from a small town, white dude, but he's a singer. And so I'm like creating kind of his backstory and things of that nature. And I have this sort of story structure with different characters, my mentor, people who came through in my life that helped me. But his story, I'm like, he just has like other cool shit. He has like hardships that happen to him, but also cool stuff that happens to him along the way. And so the way I'm thinking about it is that, I'm going to I've been working on the script, and then when I have kind of the screenplay, and then I'm going to hopefully get that workshop to figure that out, and then start making the songs, kind of the soundtrack to go with that, and then raise some money, or what if I can get fucking nice at sales, like just bootstrap it myself, and like shoot a couple of these scenes. I have a call with my older brother this evening, and I'm going to try to pitch him on shooting some of these with me, because I think if I could, and then maybe pitching those. I have some friends in different places that I think if I had something real tangible where it was like, they are not going to be super well high polished and produced as well as I can, but like, here are 3 scenes. Imagine if you took 3 scenes from 8 Mile and then was like, this is what it is with the script, rather than just like trying to send the script. I'm like, here are these completed songs with these 3 scenes, powerful scenes along the movie, these kind of like pivotal points. I think it could have some legs. I think it could be really cool too. And just screenwriting, I think it'd be a rad kind of new angle. Again, I feel sort of torn, because what I don't love about screenwriting is script. You can spend all this time on a script and it can go nowhere. It sits in a closet. Whereas compared to like novels, these short stories and stuff, I feel like I can always kind of do something with them. I can like release them as a collection or rework them and then ship them myself. Whereas the scripts, they kind of, if they don't go anywhere, they don't go anywhere. And so it's just kind of like sits in your closet. There's a much longer lifetime on those to kind of like come to fruition. But I think it still could be a cool skill to learn, as well as something kind of fun, like a new kind of fun creative project to, just to bring this full circle, this is what I was talking about with a friend over dinner a couple nights ago, that she doesn't love these like musical movies like Star is Born or she didn't even see La La Land or Rocket Man. She's like, nah, she's like, I can't suspend belief. I don't really like it. I don't really like these like musical movies. And so to me, I think that's fascinating, just thinking about like how to me like Rocket Man or La La Land, I'm like, this is like a perfect movie, and how much work goes into something like this, and how if it's just not for you, it doesn't really matter. You're just not going to watch it. Excuse me. So it's like, to me, I think that again, it's like this kind of very freeing, creatively kind of freeing idea is that it's like, it doesn't have to be amazing. I can just get it to be as good as it can. I'll shoot it. I'll like indie spirit, like bootleg the fuck out of it, like typical. But it's the first time in a long time I've been excited about making music again. And then also the screenwriting is it's just a whole new art form. So it's been cool, like diving into that, and it's very dialogue based. So I've just been super excited about that, like chipping away at building out my first script. It's cool too, I think, having this sort of like, you kind of see the movie in your mind and learning how to write good dialogue. And so I'm hoping that will kind of translate over to the novel stuff maybe a little bit later. But just entertaining the thought has opened up kind of this new world of possibility of what I want out of my life. You know, I'm like, if I could do like on some Lin-Manuel Miranda shit, like do this soundtracks to movies, not scoring them because I don't have nearly enough music theory experience to do that, but like to create soundtracks to movies, like modern songs, modern R&B songs, like rap songs. I don't have to necessarily be the one performing it, but to write them, help create the music around them, help maybe like vocally produce them with other people. I was listening to this is going to sound super egotistical, but I was listening to like the Hamilton soundtrack, and I was like, I could do that shit. I was like, I bet I could do that shit. And so now I just got to get the screenwriting skills good enough. But like in terms of the songwriting stuff, I feel like if I could, it might be a way that maybe I was never meant to be an artist or be a successful artist with my own career, but maybe it's like telling stories and adding this visual component through written scripts and stuff is sort of like the way in to create these soundtracks and stuff that I still like, or, you know, I feel like are a part of me, and I have a lot of the skills for it. So it's just, I think, finding a way to make that happen without it needing to be $1 million. But I bet I could scrounge something up here and there, or I just get fucking nice with the sales, bro. Just live check to check, get nice with the sales, stack some cash, and fund the shit myself and create a little sizzle reel for some of this stuff. So that's the update for now. Lots of creative things bubbling. Probably the most passionate, excited I've been creatively in a long time. No idea where. I've just been kind of given up on any sort of semblance of normal life, needing to have any normal life, leaning into this idea that my career is just more just a collection of projects, and then finding ways to get them out there, finding ways to feed myself with it, and kind of gambling it all, that someday it'll make sense, that someday it'll be worth it, someday I might actually get paid for some of this stuff. And until then, just enjoying the process and, appreciating the journey of learning these art forms and giving my entire self over to them at this point. So that's the update. One step at a time. So it goes. Thanks for tuning in. Future Key, you got this. Hang in there, boy. Peace.